There are bosses who traumatized our childhood, but those bosses we never thought we could defeat until we became adults and realized they weren't that difficult. That is not the case for those we are going to talk about today. Even the best players in the world have struggled with them. 20 bosses that took years to be defeated. Bosses so long that they outraged the players. It's 2002. World of Warcraft has been announced, and it's the craze of online games. Square Enix, wanting to ride the hype, releases Final Fantasy & Fight, an MMORPG. Gone are the scripted adventures. Now we play with thousands of players connected on the internet. Fans of the saga were not very happy, and it's going to get worse. The game being known for the sadism of its developers and its unbeatable bosses. Absolute Virtue. This simple name sends shivers down every player's spine. On YouTube, it's in all the top lists of the hardest bosses in video games. But what is not said is all the scandal behind it. It's strong, 100,000 HP, devastating blows, but above all, access to the best skills in the game. In 2005, a guild launched an assault on it. They were ready, over-equipped, maximum level, and yet after dozens of hours, the boss was still standing. Players couldn't sleep, some fainted, others vomited. It was a slaughter. Worse, after 30 hours, the unthinkable happened. The boss fully regenerates its health points. It had used the healing skill, Benediction, twice in a row. A spell so powerful that normally it can only be used once every 2 hours. Absolute Virtue, however, is above the law. The guild gives up. Players are furious with the developers whose only response was, "It's not a bug, it's just you who don't know how to handle it." It took 3 years for them to give a hint on how to defeat it. Absolute Virtue does not use the Benediction skill if a player uses it 3 seconds before, with a cooldown of 2 hours. It's just superhuman, impossible. That's why a guild decided to try again by coding a bot, to be able to anticipate care for counterattacks. They also knew all the little glitches to protect themselves. And of course, they had their little stock of Red Bull to last through the night. After hours of fierce battle, finally, Absolute Virtue falls, except shock. There is no reward. They thought they would receive legendary stuff, and nothing. The developers indeed watched the battle live, and judging the use of forbidden bots and glitches, they disabled the loot and banned the players. Shortly after, another team tried using this time-legal techniques. They took it down in record time. But once again, no loot. The developers judging this time that, I quote, "The boss was not intended to be defeated in this manner." At the same time, a media scandal erupted because of the boss, Pandemonium Warden, second boss of the game, reputed to be impossible. A guild was forced to play more than 18 hours straight before giving up due to the health issues of its members. During a dinner with a journalist, a Square Enix developer reportedly mocked them. 18. That's more than enough. In 10 hours, it's doable. Damn hypocrisy. Knowing that the game warns you at its launch to be careful about your health, limit your playtime, maintain a social life, such a boss is just immoral. Fortunately, after the scandal, the power of these bosses was greatly reduced. At the time, it wasn't the first game to oppose this type of problem. In 2003, there was the Terraform scandal on EverQuest. The developers refused for their almost invincible boss to be defeated. When a team was about to succeed, poof, it disappeared. The official reason was cheating, but the reality, in fact, is money. This boss was very long to summon. More than a month, it required at least 200 players to hope to take it down, and the different guilds waged a war and limitless jealousy to be the first. It creates hype, excitement, profit. An impossible boss is the guarantee of attracting many players, ready to take on the challenge, and never mind their health, except there was a revolt, and on November 17th, 2003, the dragon had to be reinstated, and after 3 hours of fierce combat, where all the guilds decided to ally and stop fighting, it finally fell for good. If these two MMORPGs have been heavily criticized for this, the most famous of them, World of Warcraft is not in good standing with Seton and Uro from the Temple of Ankiraj, two bosses that took particularly long to defeat. If Uro took a lot of time, it's for two reasons. He has a huge amount of HP, 2 million. Well, laziness. And above all, it was an optional boss. Players didn't pay much attention to him. They focused on the dungeon's big bad, Sithun, the very ancient god. He was capable of firing laser beams that could decimate the entire team in one shot, no matter where they were on the field. His second phase was even bugged, with damage reduced by 99%. A Blizzard staff member even said it was mathematically impossible. Fortunately, the bug was patched, and 87 days after the boss appeared, it was defeated. It's still an achievement, as it required gathering a team of 40 elite players at a time when there weren't many social networks. A funny little anecdote about this game with another invincible boss. But this time, because of the players' sadism, Lord Kazakh is not a very frightening boss. He roams the map and all players can encounter him. His ability is that every time he kills a player with his projectiles, he heals a lot. Some players then had an idea. Since the boss roams around a bit, what if we brought him to an enemy city? It was a massacre. Since there were plenty of new players, he killed them repeatedly, healing infinitely. Even the big players couldn't do anything. Once again, the developers had to intervene to seal the boss away from the cities forever. It just goes goes to show it's not always the villains in the story. These bosses that kept their secrets for decades. 29 years. That's how long it took to find a small detail that would allow a one-hit KO. Bald Bull and Piston Honda. Two bosses from the game Punch-Out. It's boxing, but made by Nintendo. You have to dodge punches with a lot of reflexes and especially luck. Difficult under these conditions to break time records. And yet, against these two bosses, people hadn't noticed a small anomaly in the audience. This guy with a beard. Every time he nods, he actually gives the exact moment to strike and land a critical hit, a direct KO. These kinds of little secrets about old games have often been discovered thanks to technology. The most famous case is undoubtedly the Demon God of Ninja Gaiden. The game is known to be extremely difficult, but not impossible. Players wanted to spice things up and challenge themselves to try to finish the game without getting hit even once. A bit masochistic, those guys. Unfortunately, it was impossible. Because of the final boss who drops his head on you and it's impossible to avoid, you would get hit and lose the challenge. A guy had the idea to code an artificial intelligence to find a trick. The computer tested thousands of possibilities and surprise, it worked. The head can be destroyed. Problem is that it requires skills that only a computer can have. Striking dozens of times within half a second with precise timing. Not scared by this, the player Slackinator decided to take on the challenge. See the stress of his fingers endlessly repeating the impossible movement.
Oh, I did it! The first ever freaking, oh my god, it happened!
30 years later, the boss was defeated without taking any damage. There's another boss in a similar case. It's the one at the end of Richter on NES. The game is hard but finishable, so once again, players found another challenge. Finish the European version. Because in this one, there is a bug that completely breaks the game's mathematics, resulting in the player having very little health and hitting 4 times less hard. The final boss became impossible to defeat, and many children had nightmares about it. 20 years later, we still found the trick. It's a bit long to explain, but it involves killing lots of monsters, not getting hit, and having maximum mana to launch 2 super attacks on the boss. It doesn't kill him directly. You'll need a bit of skill, but in 2 minutes, someone finally did it on YouTube. In the comments, the children of yesterday rejoice at finally being able to hear the lion roar one last time. These bosses whose weak points took years to be found. If Final Fantasy VII marked the general public with its final boss, the most seasoned players still remember the trauma of the Emerald Weapon. She wandered freely on the map, and those who encountered her had 3 unpleasant surprises. 1, she's extremely long to kill. 1 million hit points. 2, there is a maximum 20-minute timer, and when you know the insane duration of summons, it goes very fast. And 3, she has attacks capable of almost completely reducing your hit points and mana points, in addition to inflicting 11 damage per equipped material, so you're forced to go in naked. Sometime later, by chance, a player found a secret game mechanic. If the HP of one of your members drops to 7 to 77 hit points, it triggers an ultimate attack, and it's particularly easy on the Emerald Weapon because, reminder, for each equipped material, you lose 11 damage. The boss falls in record time. We have a similar case with Yasmat from Final Fantasy III. For him, it's a total meltdown. For him to appear, you have to kill all 32 bosses in the game. It's long. Once done, we discover this monster with 50 million hit points. That's 200 times more than the final boss. And finally, he can fully heal himself in 1 move. Despite all that, the boss is not that difficult. In the game, you can program your characters to perform automatic actions. You start in the morning, you go to class, and in the evening, the boss is almost dead. That's what one of my friends did. But in the evening, his console had burned. Bad luck. Especially since 12 years after the game's release, we found a trick to beat him in record time, 3 minutes. Same thing for Adam Ankalone from Final Fantasy 15. You literally fight against a mountain. 5 million HP, you'll feel like you're hitting a rock for hours. The developers even announced, all happy, that it took 72 hours to kill it. The best ones got out in 1/30 of a relentless run. Finally, we discovered that it wasn't necessary. There's a way to finish it in 1 hit. You just have to attack it with the Air's Ring found in the adventure, which allows you to kill everyone in 1 hit. Except for the bosses, it's not supposed to work on them. But there you go, on Adamank alone, it does. That's why it took so long for a player to say to themselves, what if I try? A bit ridiculous to beat the ultimate boss of the game like that. These bosses that took years to be found. The werewolf boss of GTA 5. People took a year to solve this investigation, based on crime and hallucinogenic cacti, and there are quite a few hidden bosses of this kind. A more recent case is in the game, The Division. There's the zoo area. It's very large. There's not much to do. A guy on Twitter then wondered, why do that? And a developer liked his tweet. He even decided to give a hint himself.
But the only other tip I will give is, if you find yourself in one of our levels and you have about like a football field's length in which you are doing nothing, you should probably look around.
We know now there's a boss that no one has ever seen. People piece together the clues and find the trick. You had to shoot all the beehives in the zoo, then the agony would appear, a tribute to the pain from Metal Gear Solid 3. We had a similar surprise from developers in the game World of Warcraft with the boss, Ingenieur Plombomiga. In fact, they had fun 10 years after the game's release, hiding a tiny secret switch in a very low-level dungeon for beginners. And when you pressed it, a level of 10 boss would appear to crush your noob team. Obviously, it was implemented late in the game, so the strongest players weren't immediately aware. And especially, it took a bit of time to understand how to avoid those bombs that killed in one hit. You actually had to press the big switches of the level at the same time with your teammates. These 3 examples are when developers give hints, but sometimes there aren't any, and it takes years before a hacker decides to dive into the game's source code and find bosses. This is what happened with Shin Akuma from Street Fighter Alpha 2. Akuma is a recurring hidden boss in the series. There is a legendary cheat code that allowed unlocking him in a previous game, but in Alpha 2 it took 25 years. 25 years before a hacker took an interest, and frankly, we couldn't have found it on our own. You had to reach the top rank on the scoreboard, enter the name cage, then with a second controller press L, X, Y, and start on the home screen, while controller 1 selects versus mode. Only then could the fight against the boss Shin Akuma begin. A similar process with 2 hidden bosses in Bloodborne, discovered 3 years later by the hacker Zully the Witch. They are actually abandoned bosses, still present in the developers' test rooms. A bit like Professor Oak from Pokemon Red and Blue. He was supposed to be the final boss of the game. The idea was abandoned, and it was only years later that his existence was discovered and the hack to unlock him. Frankly, given how stylish the fight is, we almost regret not being able to beat him when we were kids. These bosses that require a lot of luck. There are bosses that took years to be defeated simply because you need to be lucky to find them. Take Borderlands 2. You have a mission where you have to kill mosquitoes. You have a 1.68% chance to spawn the boss, Vermivorous the Invincible. And you know the worst part? He can run away. Not to mention he's overpowered. All that luck might have been for nothing. Another boss with a legendary appearance is the Flaming Undead in Bloodborne once again. Now his story is interesting. Everyone knew of his existence. He was the star boss of the playable demo at E3 2014, but once the game was released, he seemed to have disappeared. We thought he had been removed, but years later, a player claims on a forum to have seen him. In fact, he appears randomly in the Chalice dungeon, a sort of procedural labyrinth where enemies and bosses are completely random. It seems you only have a 1% chance to encounter this hidden boss. And there, I hear in the comments traumatized people. Please don't talk about Der Richter in Final Fantasy X. Oh yes, I will talk about it. Many of you have tried to face this ultimate boss, but almost all of you gave up because it requires so much luck that some take years. To put it simply, he only unlocks if you have unlocked everything in the game. It's long, but not impossible. Except when it comes to Titus's weapon, to find the ingredient to craft it, you have to do a chocobo race with a time of 0 seconds or a negative time. How is it possible? Well, in the race, you have balloons that give time bonuses, but they are so random, you need so many that, well, it drives the unlucky ones mad with rage. That's not all. Once the final boss is summoned, you know the drill. It's super hard. 12 million HP, that's 100 times more than the final boss. It can kill in one hit, and to be able to hit it, you have to kill its 2 arms that constantly regenerate. It seems impossible, but some players have found a trick to kill it in one hit, and again, you'll need luck. In the game, you can summon the Yojimbo Chimera. It only attacks if you give it money, and the more you pay, the more damage it does. Also, the more you've used it during the adventure, the more it will give you friendly prices while dealing maximum damage. To hope to perform Yojimbo's ultimate attack, people have calculated the ideal amount of money, good relations with him, and luck. We're back to that. Because yes, skill doesn't always count, and that allows me to conclude with one last childhood nightmare. The Lingering Will of Kingdom Hearts 2. Now him. It's supposed to be an ultimate boss, the armored incarnation of a Keyblade master. And God, is he powerful. It hits hard. It moves fast, attacks from a distance, can teleport, and prevent you from using your physical attacks or magic. It has everything to destroy you. Reading the comments under the videos, you find people who took decades before finally managing to beat what traumatized them as children. And as if that wasn't enough, some hackers have challenged themselves to beat 5 Lingering Wills at the same time, and it's not very glorious.
I don't even know why I'm still doing this. I know it's impossible. I'm done.
So, what was the boss that traumatized your childhood? I hope in this video I made you want to fight them again to avenge your younger self. If you enjoyed it, consider sharing the video, liking it, and commenting. A big thank you to the people in charge of research, as well as all the editors. Alright friends, ciao!